Well, welcome to the podcast, Chris.
Delighted to be here on this sunny afternoon.
That's it. So we're at, I've got to remember the name of the lakes now. Is it Pinnock? Pinnock Lakes?
Yes, it's Pinnock Lakes at Edmondshire.
And we're catching tench, well, we're with people catching tench incursions anyway, overseeing it.
We're overseeing them. Yeah, I'm gillying.
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
gillying and tea making.
Yeah, and you're doing, I was just about to say you're doing a good job of tea making, but you forgot.
But I forgot the essential items.
Of cups. So we could see you do the kettle, but not quite there.
But luckily the day, we have to reassure everybody, the day was saved.
With Hugh Miles came to the rescue with cups, so we were all right. But we're going to talk about a few things with your past career and everything that you've done. I think we can't do a podcast without mentioning a certain carp that some people may be familiar with. So when you caught the 51 pounder, was it your intention to catch the British record, or was it more of a happy accident?
Yeah, probably a happy accident, because I think I can say honestly that I was the only person in the syndicate who didn't dream all the time or think that they were going to catch or want to catch a record carp. Of course, every carp angler likes the idea of a monster, but that wasn't my focus.
No.
I just loved being at Redmire. It was a great place to fish, and the thought that these monsters were there in front of you, that was good enough.
Yeah.
And although I did catch a huge common a few years, 7 years before I got the 51, it was nearly it just almost made 44.
Yeah.
But not quite, and I'm glad it didn't, because it was a bit spawny, and it didn't look like a sort of one of the pristine commons that was there. So I was quite glad that it didn't make that figure. Otherwise, everyone would have been saying that's not a proper record, which it wasn't.
No.
It was a lot of spawn in it,
full of eggs.
Yeah. So, but even so, I still wasn't. So I was quite pleased that wasn't over the top, because it wasn't that wasn't my ambition.
No, that's fair enough. And obviously, you were kind of obsessed with carp then, but you've got this great love for all kinds of species, including crusions today. So if you could break any fish record now, what would it be?
Oh, it'd have to be the gudgeon.
Would it really? We were talking about this earlier, weren't we?
Yes. It's in fact, I did think that I would go on a mission one season and just fish for nothing but gudgeon.
Okay.
Especially because the River Nadder, which is not far from me, that flows from the chalk hills near where I am, it's sort of like there's a mixture of chalk and green sand hills, and it flows easterly to Salisbury and then joins the Avon, and it's not crystal clear like a chalk stream because it's got this green sand in it, and apparently it's just the ideal habitat for gudgeon.
Right. And
that produced a 6.5 ouncer a few years ago, which I think is the current, or was the record when I was.
It's around that, yeah. Yeah.
And so I did go gudgeon fishing there quite a lot. I never caught a 6 and 3/4 ouncer.
That's got to be at least the size of your hand or something, isn't it? It's
God, I mean, that would take you several hours to land.
Might even need the net for it.
Yeah,
perhaps.
I'm sure you would.
And one of the great things today is when we sat talking when you first arrived, and we saw a hobby, we've seen bullfinch and things like that, and I'd say you're a marvellous mix of naturalist and angler, but do you think there's a bit of a disconnect between the two now? Because often people see, there's the fisherman, there's the naturalist, whereas surely there's no reason why you can't be both. But
I think you have to be a naturalist to be I hate to use the word successful, not so much successful, but proficient.
Yeah.
You have to be an observer. I mean, you could be like a carp angler who just buys ready-made rigs and ready-made baits and just cast out his multiple rods and sits back. That's not. Doesn't matter whether you know about nature or whether you're interested in nature. You'll catch fish eventually. But that's hardly an entertaining day out, is it? Especially when you buy water, which is such a good habitat for all sorts of things. Like today, my main concern today is not crucian carp or tench. It's finding a grass snake.
Yeah.
This is obviously a great habitat for grass snakes, but I've not seen one today.
No, I mean,
so I'm looking.
The sun's just coming out now. There's some lovely patches through the glades, and you can just imagine a grass snake just curled up, poking his head out, thinking about a frog or two. So,
and I think that the point about wanting to see these things, or not wanting to see these things, hoping to see these things, it shows that that environment you're in, the place where you're fishing, is real. where things are happening. These are real things going on. Little dramas are going on all the time, and it makes the whole experience more complete. When you catch the fish, you've caught part of that environment, and it's that is the satisfying part of fishing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look at Jack Hargreaves, and that was the kind. Was it Out of Town, or where they'd be a mixture of bird watching, then he'd go fishing a little bit, which I don't think you'd really see that now, apart from maybe a nice cutaway of a mallard or something if you're lucky. That's about it. Whereas there's no reason. So sticking on that theme, what's the best wildlife sighting you've had while you've been fishing then?
I have to say, winter perch fishing and seeing a male hen harrier go by.
Oh, fantastic!
Because I'm very much a fan of hen harriers nowadays. I think they're otherworldly birds. They're so ethereal when you see them, so ghost-like. And I was fishing with a good friend of mine, Kev. Kevin.
You hear that buzzard then?
Yeah. There we
sorry
are.
to interrupt
There's a raptor.
you.
No, that raptor was interrupting us.
Yeah, he heard. I know that
great.
hen harrier.
yeah, I've seen that hen harrier. Not this time of year, but in winter. And there were two buzzards holding up above a hill to our right, and they've been holding sort of, obviously not hovering, because they do hover into wind sometimes, buzzards. But then we saw another bird going past them, and his brother-in-law Ben was with us too. And we all said, more or less the same moment, that's a male hen harrier. And the males are they're the flash harriers.
Yeah.
They are fantastic looking. They don't look quite real. They look exotic. And they're very, very graceful. Anyway, it just floated by.
Yeah, it's still a bird I'm yet to see. I would love to see it. I'll get there. I will get one eventually. There's so many bits and bobs we could talk about, but one of the bits of work that you have done which caught my eye was that fantastic radio documentary you did about burbot.
Yes.
And I think was it The Curious Case of the Burbot or something like that?
Yeah, yes, I think it was the case of the. Was it the lost? God, I should remember.
I should know it.
It was my title. It wasn't a stolen burbot. It was the lost burbot, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the case of the lost burbot.
So what drew you to do that about burbot? When something obvious like pike or salmon or whatever. Why kind of draw attention to this freshwater cod?
Well, I'd always been intrigued even as a teenager, because I had an album of coarse fish. The Brook Bond album of coarse fish was, I think, most of my contemporaries at that time. They were all aged about 14, 15, and you get these. They were lovely watercolours in your peachy tips. And come, I'm getting another packet of. I want to get the full set. Anyway, and the burbot was the weirdest thing, and I just thought that's intriguing. It was fascinated by just the look of it on the card, and obviously I'd seen a picture of it in the Observer's Book of Fish, which was another one of my small library of fishing books when I was a youngster. But they gradually grew, and then I read a really interesting account of how they used to be common in the Cam in Cambridgeshire, and then they obviously were in the Thames. I think they were meant to be in the Thames at the beginning of the 20th century. Don't forget, I am a 20th century person, so I get all these stories about. And I thought, I want to know more about this weird. And they're only meant to feed at night.
Right. Okay.
So, I think 8.5 pounds.
Okay.
What was the record? People kept records then.
Yeah.
And I thought that's good, because at that time the record chub was 8.5 pounds, and the record tench was 8.5 pounds. I thought, this is a mystical number. There's something, and yet I know no one who's caught a burbot. So I thought, this one day I'm going to find a place. I want to catch one of these fish and see what it's really like. And that's where the program came from, because of course I never did catch one.
No. So, do you think there are any out there? Or?
Well, we met when we were exploring the Derwent, where the last burbot we discovered had been caught. There was a man called Jimmy Beale. He was a farmer up there, and apparently we were told he's a lovely character. Go and talk to him, he'll remember, because he used to catch burbot. He used to be sent out by his mother, this is in the 30s, to catch burbot for tea, because they're very good eating. And sure enough, he sat in his big armchair in this lovely Yorkshire accent, and God, I was trying to do a Yorkshire accent, then it came out as like Dorset. So I won't
very similar.
I won't do a Yorkshire accent. And have you got any burbot, lad? Have you got any burbot, lad? No. Yeah, that's probably what they would sound like. But anyway, he did remember catching these burbot, and he caught them up to the sort of early 60s.
Okay.
When he was perch fishing, you might catch one or two, up to about £1.50, he said.
Well, there are. I mean, you might already know this, but there are plans to reintroduce them. They are afoot, and I think the Wissey in Norfolk is where they're aiming to start with. But fingers crossed.
Oh, well, the Wissey would have been a native river.
Yeah, they would have been there,
Yeah,
and there's some MOD land, so there's no fishing there. They're just hoping they get established and then move out. But I have actually seen a burb. They tried to reintroduce them in 2007, and I remember before I took up filmmaking, I was going to do fisheries, and I quickly realised that was not going to work. But they were breeding these burbot, and the guy who was running it showed me this adult burbot. It must have been about 5 pounds. It's female.
Oh,
and
it was good fish.
Oh, it was prehistoric looking.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. I remember it vividly now. The drips coming off its beard, a bit like us, Chris, with our beard. Big chunky beard, but yeah, just the drips coming off them, and it was just incredible. But who knows?
I have caught a burbot.
Have you actually? Oh, somewhere else?
In Norway, through a hole in the ice.
Oh, fantastic!
So I can say I'm an Englishman who's caught a burbot.
There you go, which is a small list, I would think.
But the greatest thing was that I knew that burbot were in this lake, but we were fishing for Arctic char.
Okay.
And it was for a Norwegian film company and TV company. And I hooked this fish and I thought, this isn't pulling like a char.
Yeah.
And it's like fishing in a bottomless bucket. You know, when you're ice fishing, a little stupid rod.
Yeah.
And yet you've got 40 foot of water underneath you. Actually, there was about 60 foot of water underneath us. And gradually this thing came up and I thought, oh my God, it's a burbot! And this cry went up because the crew knew I was a bit mad about it when they told me that there are also a few burbot in this lake. So you never know. And then everyone came rushing over to see this burbot. And it was about, I don't know, I don't think it was quite a pound.
No,
but it
doesn't matter, does it?
It was a bit like it was a bit like an eel in its the skin was smooth and cross between an eel and a tench. It had that kind of feel about it. Lovely face.
Yeah, they are. They're special fish, aren't they? I don't know. We'll see if they come back. It would be good. I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention passion for angling once. And I mean, I can just see Hugh over your shoulder. He's fishing for tench now. But when Hugh approached you with the idea and called passion for angling, what were your first thoughts? You're like, oh, this sounds quite nice. Or were you hesitant? Or
I raised an eyebrow.
Did you?
Remember. Yes, and then the eyebrow went down again. I thought, no, it's going to be too busy. But he'd got in touch with me because he'd read my first book, Casting at the Sun, and he enjoyed the book so much. He said he was looking to make a film about fish. He did start to make a fishing film with Dick Walker.
Ah, okay.
And he'd done a few. Yes, he'd done a few days with him, and then of course Dick got ill. And towards the end, towards that time, and so it was a little while before. We were talking about it for a while. Yeah. Maybe it was probably 86. Something like that, 87. No, the book was published in 86, so it would have been 87 he got in touch with me. Yeah, and then it gradually snowballed. It became...
into chaos.
It became a disaster because we had to do the bloody thing.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, well, I put out some feelers for questions from other Yates fans who've got in touch. I'm going to read out a few of them, and I tried to pick more interesting ones, so we'll see how these go. So Andy Roberts asks, what's Chris's experience of fishing for wildies, and how important does he think they are to the heritage of carp angling?
Well, most people know that I have a big soft spot for wildies because they were the first carp I fished for, and yet I think there is a case to make that wildies, as people sort of regard them, they don't really exist as wild carp. They're not a separate species.
No.
So they're mostly, the reason they look like wild carp, long and lean, is because they're in fairly remote places that haven't had much, in fairly poor waters, so they're not going to grow very big. Although now and again you do see some that are sort of, they might be long, but they're also very muscular But I just think it was the fact that they were remote places, the proper, what I'd call a proper wildie water. That's why I like fishing for them.
Yeah. There's a few in Wales, isn't there? I think there's some dotted around. I think Norfolk might have a few pockets.
Yes, that's right.
It makes you think how many tucked away farm ponds might just be
Just
holding some,
Yes.
some out there.
But I think as far as them as a separate species or separating them
Yeah.
as I fish for wildies or I fish for common carp or I just fish for, that I don't.
They're all Saprinus carpio.
Yeah,
aren't
they're
they?
all carp.
Yeah.
Yes, but it is nice when you get a true, as it were, like an old monastery pond, like the one in that was the place I used to fish, which I called Abbotsmere in my first book, was near Liswen, in just in the middle of the Black Mountains, really, on the east side of the Black Mountains, called the Deru. Its real name was the Deru. It was a farm, and they had been there since the monastery was made.
Wow.
And so it was an old ancient lineage.
Yeah.
And they were fabulous fish, and they were the epitome to me of and I never caught one of the big ones, but I did see them. They must have been 12 pounds.
Okay,
bigger.
that's big for a
wild.
For a wild carp,
Yeah.
as we say. Richard Pudney says, does Chris still have the deer stalker he wore in A Passion for Angling?
I think I have a terrible feeling. I think my children used it.
We've got this horrible plane just going over now,
God,
which is
yeah,
always ideal when you're trying to record
Yeah.
audio. They seem to know this in homing.
Yeah.
There'll be a lawnmower next, and
Yeah.
then someone.
I think the worst thing. The worst thing is a strimmer.
Yes. Oh God, they're a bastard, aren't they?
If I was the Prime Minister, I wouldn't
When, Chris? Think positive.
ban strimmers.
Yeah.
Ban strimmers and hoovers. I hate hoover. The sound of a hoover in the morning is one of the worst sounds in the world.
Yeah, it is. We should be all right for hoovers where we are. But
Any mechanical device
Yeah.
makes that sort of monotonous sound is enough to drive you to. I was going to say bream, but I quite like bream.
Yeah. No.
I used to be quite kind of dismissive about bream, but
they get a bad rap, don't they?
They
But you
do.
know what?
Yeah.
A 10-pound bream's an impressive animal.
oh, absolutely, especially from a river.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really sort of. I think I was missing something when I used to sort of turn my nose up at them. But nowadays I'm river bream, like river tench is another one that I'd never really experienced before. But now I've experienced the river tench. This is good.
They're all right, aren't they?
There's always something new
Exactly.
to discover.
Exactly. We'll circle back round to deer stalker.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Sorry. The deer stalker. It was put on a guy one November the 5th, and I think that's what happened to it. I can't be absolutely certain, but I think it was the garden bonfire.
Oh really? So there's a pile of ash somewhere,
Yeah,
and that's
a pile
where
of
it
ash
is.
somewhere. It was a bit mouse eaten, and
Okay.
it was no one would except me would want to put it on their head.
I'm going to horribly pronounce this name, but Tajni Ribovlevluk. That's not how you say it, but sorry about that. We all know that many anglers would love to spend a day fishing with Chris, but if he could choose any one past or present to spend a day with on the bank, who would it be and why?
Well, I've spent a day on the bank with so many.
The great and the good, haven't you?
Yes,
Really?
I mean,
So
like Bernard Venables,
Yeah,
who was a
yeah.
wonderful character to fish with. I would like to have spent a day on the bank with BB, Dennis Watkins Pitchford, who wrote Confessions of a Carp Angler.
Okay.
And he was a wonderful naturalist in his own right. And
Yeah.
also wrote some very famous children's books around the sort of 40s and 50s. He won the Carnegie Medal with one of them, The Little Grey Men. And I would have loved. I did know him. I met him several times. Spent time by his pond in his garden talking about Beechmere and Redmire, which he fished back in the 50s. But I would like to have fished with BB, I think.
Okay, that's a good answer. So Tracy Burns goes, is there anything angling related or not that you would like to talk about but never get the chance to discuss? Because presumably you just get bombarded with passion for angling and big carp.
Big carp.
But,
yes, I don't want to talk about big carp anymore.
No.
And bigness also. I don't want to talk about bigness.
Okay.
It's
What's
highly
the smallest fish you want to catch?
highly overrated.
Well, like today, we're not catching monsters, but it's great fun.
No, the quality of a fishing day is measured by the atmosphere, by the company, perhaps. You don't know, although company's not. I'm a bit of a solitary, actually.
Yeah.
But it is the company that I'm looking forward to, like the company of like today, you know, we saw that hobby.
Yeah.
I saw a kingfisher just now going across me.
Oh, lovely.
That kind of company. You know,
Yeah.
a grass snake comes and says hello, a vole, a water vole.
Yeah.
All these things. This is what, to me, that's how you should measure success in a day. What creatures, what evidence of wilderness there is around you.
Yeah.
And then if you catch a fish on top of that, it's just a bonus.
Yeah. No, definitely. I'm finding, I guess because I work in wildlife filmmaking, that I'll often see more when I'm fishing because I'm just in the same spot all day, and you're a bit more, I don't know, aware of your. Because if you're looking at a float all day, you're not really always taking it in. But it's.
Yes. Sometimes you can be too concentrated.
Yeah.
Although at least it means that you become invisible.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of anglers still don't get that. You know, you can get within 6 foot of a very wily carp, and the carp just ignores you as long as you do not move even a finger.
Yeah.
You know, once it's come to within, you know, right to the edge of the margin. And that's why I can't understand why people want to cast 100 yards. What is the point when you can get them under your nose?
Always caked in camo as well. When these sort of people chuck,
Yes.
and you're like, why the hell are you in Realtree when you could wear a bright red jumpsuit and it'd make bugger all difference?
Yes,
But
absolutely. You could have
dunno.
flashing. You could cover yourself in flashing Christmas lights, and it wouldn't make any difference. But when they're that close to you, you know, you just have to be in something, you know, pretty dark. As long as you're wearing something darkish or greenish.
Yeah.
You don't have to cover yourself in leaves, but there they are. And,
Yeah.
and so to be able to watch their behaviour, to watch their reactions to things other than you, to other than anglers, and you really do discover their character then.
Yeah. No, definitely. And right on cue, another bloody plane. We need a couple of anti-aircraft carriers.
I think it's the Battle of Britain. it's a sort of one of those days, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
Battle
Which
of
is,
Britain
you know...
Day. It's a Messerschmitt, you're right, it is. It's the Germans. It's because we've just beaten them at football.
Oh, they're coming back.
They're coming back. It's a Stuka. It's not a Messerschmitt.
It'll go over in a second. Well, I'm on my last question anyway, so hopefully people can hear over this god-awful plane that's doing it. But this is Kimberly Burns' question, and she asks, knowing that fishing has been a lifelong love affair, has there ever been a season in your life when it's lost its charm and appeal?
Kimberly, that's a very interesting question, because I'm just having, as it were, I'm having time out at the moment. See, I'm the only one here who's not fishing today.
Yeah.
And certainly since the lockdown, which didn't impact on me at all, because I live in a beautiful remote part of the country, and I could spend the whole day walking about, and I wouldn't be getting in the way of anybody because I wouldn't see anybody. So it didn't have any effect on me. But I was more interested in what was going on that first winter, because of my recent discovery of the hen harrier, which is a bit like my discovery of carp in the first place.
Yeah.
I have
Some moorhen
going on behind me.
Kicking up.
I bet that's a grass snake going
It
through
could be.
its
It's
nest.
eating its chicks.
Yeah. Yes, I've always been quick to become obsessed by something that really attracts my attention, and something which has got a bit of extra quality, a bit of magic about it. Something, as an old poacher I used to know, who would say, that bird, he got away from me, but he'd had a bit of God in him. And although I don't believe in a God, that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Those creatures that have a bit of God in them, is like the carp and the barbel and the tench, and definitely the hen harrier.
Yeah.
They're a mysterious creature, wonderful bird, and I've become hooked on them now.
Yeah, they are something special.
So
about
that's my focus at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'll come back to fishing. It's been a lifelong thing. So, but at the moment I'm just withdrawn a little bit, and I quite like the fact that I don't have to fiddle around when I'm going out. Because when you're fishing, you have to fiddle about and faff.
Yeah.
All that preparation, I don't have to do that anymore. I just got my binoculars. I've got an apple, a banana. I jump in my car perhaps, or mostly I just set out over the hills. So there's nothing gets in my way, and I'm gone until dark. And so that's where I am at the moment.
The other thing, which is I've been told under pain of death not to mention when this book is coming out as well, but by not fishing,
Mm.
it's giving you a little bit more time to,
Yeah,
to get that done
yeah,
as well.
one has to say, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because
Yeah.
that is a very good reason why I shouldn't be fishing anyway
Yeah.
at the moment, or doing anything other than the book was commissioned in 2013.
Right. Okay.
So and it was hoped to be published 2 years later.
Yeah.
And we're now quite a long way down
Yeah.
that road. But
Yeah.
I've got such a nice publisher,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I send him a chapter every month or two, but it's only up to chapter 12 so far.
Okay.
So it's been very slow. I didn't know which way to go with it, but now it has its direction. It's found its direction, and my publisher. He is my publisher, though. He would say this, but he says it's the best thing I've ever done.
Oh, fantastic.
But it's not going to be like a fishing book. But it's like Night Walk.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
was him who published Night Walk,
Oh, okay. Okay.
which has had a good reaction. I'm very happy to say.
Which publisher were you doing it with?
William Collins.
William Collins. Okay.
Who were good because they they do the bird guides,
Yeah.
so it's quite appropriate.
Of course they do. Yeah. I was trying to think, where have I heard that before? So yeah.
I mean, they do a lot of fiction. They
Yeah.
do children's books. They have done some very good fishing books. They did the reprint of Deepening Pool, my
Okay.
Barbel book. So yes, they. Anyway, that book will be done.
Yeah. Watch this
eventually.
space. Watch this space.
Yeah,
It'll-
but don't start expecting it
No,
anytime very soon.
You'll catch up with George R.R. Martin, won't you? His
Yeah.
Game of Thrones books. He's always
Yeah.
got a little bit of a gap. Well, look, it is a pleasure, and it's a shame to waste a day like this nattering at a bench. I think we should maybe see some more fish caught, and fingers crossed for a grass snake. But thanks for taking the time, Chris, and coming on.
Pleasure.